Hello, today I will be teaching the class. Do any of you recognize me? Figures. Nobody recognizes me if I'm not connected to my husband. It's really not fair. We do all the same things, you know. We both take care of the elves and the reindeer. We both make toys. We both love children around the world. Okay, so I don't make that once-a-year trip to every home. But that doesn't make me any less important. Yet, if you see him first, you don't look for me. And if you do see me, you know exactly who I am. But if you see me first, it's like there is an imaginary string that has to connect me to him. And you are not satisfied until you see him. I'm never good enough by myself. Okay, I'll say what you want to hear. Christmas just wouldn't be complete without Santa. But can I just say that I take offense to grammar terms in the English language that exploit my The clause. Yes, clause is a grammar term. Do you know what it is? I am the dependent clause. You see, there are two kinds of clauses, a dependent and an independent. Every clause is a group of words with both a subject and a verb, but one is a complete thought or complete sentence by itself, while the other has a word in the front that makes it incomplete. Just like Santa is the clause who could represent Christmas all by himself, but those three little letters, MRS, on the front of my name make me dependent on Santa, the dependent one. Here is a list of words that make a clause dependent. They make what would have been a sentence be incomplete. Starting a sentence with something like because, if, or since makes the sentence need an independent clause to complete it. Think about it. If you refer to someone as Mr., you don't expect a Mrs., but if there is one, that's just nice. However, if someone is a Mrs., you know there has to be a Mr., and she would be incomplete without him. Yes, the whole clause concept is the same. If you put one of these words at the beginning of what would have been a complete sentence, it is suddenly dependent on another clause to make it complete. Here are some examples. After we ate our cookies. If I left off the after at the beginning, this would be a complete sentence. It would say, we ate our cookies. But with the word after at the beginning, you are waiting for more information, another clause to complete the sentence. Listen to it again if you don't believe me. After we ate our cookies. See, you're waiting for more information, right? Just like the word although, and although Rudolph was sick. Or the first word in any of these, as we packed up the sleigh, because Santa was so fat, before he left, even though we were exhausted. Another clause, an independent one, can come in and complete the sentence, just like Santa comes along to complete me. But remember that imaginary string I said that there was connecting me to him if you see me first? Well, it's not so imaginary with these grammar and punctuation rules. They call it a comma, but it is the string that connects the independent clause to the dependent clause. And it only exists if you see the dependent one first. You see, the dependent clause, after we ate our cookies, can be completed with the independent clause we put on our Christmas robes, making, after we ate our cookies, comma, we put on our Christmas robes. But since the dependent clause came first, there has to be a string or a comma connecting them. Notice in any of these examples, the dependent clause comes first, but there has to be a comma before the independent clause. Although Rudolph was sick, he was confident he could make the flight. As we packed up the sleigh, the elves were so excited. Because Santa was so fat, 3 elves had to help him into the sleigh. Before he left, Santa shouted, ho, ho, ho. Even though we were exhausted, we celebrated all night. It is different, though, if the independent clause comes first. If you see Santa first, you don't look for me. But if I'm there, it's just nice. No string is needed. And if an independent clause comes first in a sentence, there is no need for a string, the comma. Notice these are the same sentences as before. The only difference is that you see the independent clause before you see the dependent clause. We put on our Christmas robes after we ate our cookies. He was confident that he could make the flight, although he was sick. The elves were so excited as we packed up the sleigh. 3 elves had to help him into the sleigh because he was so fat. He shouted, "Ho, ho, ho," before he left. We celebrated all night, even though we were exhausted. All this about dependence has at times made me very upset. Who wants to be known as the dependent one? Once I decided that I would be independent. I wouldn't use Mrs. in front of my name anymore. It made Santa very sad and caused a lot of problems. In fact, we nearly had to split up because we were both so independent we couldn't work together anymore. That imaginary string that used to connect us wasn't strong enough to do the job at all. It was very much like the way the grammar rule referring to us works. Unless one clause is dependent, they can't be in the same sentence. And if you try to put them together with just that comma, it's not strong enough. It makes what they call a comma splice. 2 sentences are 2 sentences. Santa was very concerned. He loves me very much and didn't want to lose me. But he didn't want me to have to be dependent either. So he looked for another solution. He found one too. He found a team of North Pole marriage counselors whose names happen to be for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. These counselor elves taught us that we could both be independent and still be connected with that imaginary string, regardless of who came first, as long as we used the North Pole magic that came with their names. Well, those English rule makers liked our story, so they wrote those magic elves, or at least their names, right into their rules. So you can use 2 independent clauses in the same sentence as long as you connect them with both the magic string, the comma, and the name of one of the magic elves, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. That means that those examples I gave before could lose the dependent words completely and instead sound like this. We ate our Christmas cookies and we put on our Christmas robes. Rudolph was sick, yet he was confident he could make the flight. We packed up the sleigh and the elves were so excited. Santa was so fat, but 3 elves helped him into the sleigh. He left, so he shouted, "Ho, ho, ho." We were exhausted, for we celebrated all night. Santa and I were both very happy with this wonderful magic, but later we met a wise old elf who gave us a Christmas gift. It was strange, and at first we didn't know what to do with it, but we discovered that its power was actually that of the magic string and the magic counselor elves combined. The old elf who gave it to us told us that it was called a semicolon. This gift could be put between 2 independent clauses that would normally have to be divided into 2 separate sentences, but really want to be together. So this is how those same examples look with just the magic of a semicolon between them. Isn't it wonderful? Here is a quick review. These are the ways that we discovered 2 clauses can be connected. Use a dependent clause followed by a comma and then an independent clause. Use an independent clause followed by a dependent clause, no punctuation or special words needed. Use an independent clause followed by a comma and either for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so, then place a second independent clause. And use an independent clause followed by a semicolon and then place another independent clause. I hope my story helps you remember how to use clauses. Merry Christmas all year long.